Hey there everyone, welcome back to GameVine, and my name is Dave, and today we're going to be covering Gen Con 2015. Now this is going to be a multiple part segment, but I'm going to kind of keep the discussion and the spectacle of everything into a two-parter. The first part being me getting all the coverage that I was able to do at Gen Con 2015 and some of the spectacles. Now, as a disclaimer, I am a one-man team, so I got as much as I could, or my cameras kind of went kaput on me, so there was difficulty there. So you'll see the video transform into pictures a little later in the video. So that is what's going to happen in this first part. So there's going to be some discussion, but the second part, I'm going to bring on two guests, which you'll see who they are on the second part of Gen Con coverage 2015. And then we're really going to go over what we thought about the con and what we highlight as our game of the con, or just discussion basically. But this first part is just going to be coverage. There are going to be a few other videos that I'm going to let loose on with exclusive game that I was able to get a scoop of, which was kind of a happenstance and surprise. So I'm going to go over that a little later in this video, but I'm going to have a separate video for games like that, and there'll be a few more. So without further ado, let's get to Gen Con 2015. So yes, Gen Con. Now this was a pretty good one. Actually, probably one of my favorites, if not my favorite. But let's get into some of the spectacles that were at the actual con. Let's start off with a bang. I was able to play Kingdom Death. Now, Kingdom Death is a game that was on Kickstarter about 2+ years ago, and there's a lot of clamoring for this game to come out. There's been back and forth with the production, but I actually played with the designer and got some of the inside scoop of what's going on there, and I have a backer in my game group who keeps me updated on all that. Now, I think the postponement did wonders for this game, and I'm actually pretty excited. We played in a gallery that was just a spectacle within itself, just phenomenal. It's called Gallery 42, so the setting was very neat, and I'm gonna have some pictures and video right here. There were like spoon statues and just works of art that were really pricey, but the scene was set really well for this game, Kingdom Death, and we played with the designer. As you can see us playing here, we fought a time phoenix, and this is just a scenario that's a little later in the game, and they buffed all of our people up with equipment just to give us a flavor of the game. So, I mean, what can I say about this game? The miniatures are phenomenal. The attention to detail and kookiness of the story is something that I've never experienced before. I was laughing, I was like angry. It tapped into a lot of different emotions that I did not expect would happen. Maybe that was the scenery, maybe it was because the designer was basically coaching us through the whole game, because there was a lot of text on these cards, and I found myself saying, how many times can I attack? But that was just because I was a novice in the game. I think if you play it and get the hang of it, those actions will just become second nature. So Kingdom Death, I think, is shaping up to be a pretty good game. The experience that I had was really nice, and I look forward to playing this when it comes to our game group here soon. So that is basically the Kingdom Death experience. I'll set a video. This is one of the ones I'm going to make a separate video for, with all the video feed that I had and maybe a few words. But that was one of the prototypes that I was able to play at Gen Con, well, in a really cool gallery near Gen Con. The next things I'll go into before I actually get into the booths are the scenes. There was tons of things just to go around and look at Gen Con, and there always is. The first thing that I noticed when I walked in the doors was they had this section for magic cards, and well, actually Pokemon, any kind of cards, and they were building structures out of them. Really tall towers, and it seemed like anybody could go in there and build. There were kids in there. I'm not really sure what it was for. Maybe it was just they had a whole bunch of cards and they wanted to try to do something with it, and it was pretty cool. So that was one of the things there. The cosplay, as you can see, is really nice. I got to see Chewie. I got to see Vader. Really good Cloud with a Buster Sword, but that is always a nice segment at Gen Con, just a nice addition, because they do the parade for Gen Con and this big balloon squid thing they did. So cosplay was pretty strong there as well. There were tons of statues and ambiance with the booths. They really go all out when they go to Gen Con, because I mean there are tons of games and they really want to draw the clientele in, so they make all these really cool giant games and all these statues, which is just really nice and eye-pleasing. The crowd was at 61,000 plus, the biggest it's been ever. I think it was a 9% increase, so you could really feel it there too. Games were flying off the shelves at the beginning of the morning, and you couldn't get anywhere you wanted to in the crowds in the aisleways sometimes, and sometimes even in the exhibit hall. I was at a gridlock. The traffic was just crazy, but it doesn't bother me too much. I like the crowds, and I expect for it to grow exponentially from here on out, and I'm okay with that. The game hall was there. Huge game hall, tons of things going on. There was a decent amount of table space, not as much as you would see at Origins, but they really set up a huge demoing room, well, game room for people just to go play their tournaments and or just games they bought that day. They also had tournaments in the side rooms for Yellow and all that for the World tournaments. So they have tons of space at Gen Con. It's really nice. And that's one of the reasons why I go, because you know there's a ton of people, but there's a ton of space to move around as well. The art was really nice. They had a whole section dedicated to art. When you go in the back there, you could just kind of look at it or get something if you really want. That's not really my thing, though I do like the art. It's kind of pricey. The clothes and the custom hats. I actually got one of those custom shirts that's anything you want here at Gen Con, you can basically find. It's not just board game, tabletop games. It's anything that has to do with the culture. So there's that as well. I heard, I'm not really sure if this is true, that this is the True Dungeon's last season, so they went out with a bang. I'm not going to go too much into this. I've never done True Dungeon. I do have a few chips. I'm interested. I don't know, I found out about it and it kind of lowered my interest about it. I heard mixed things about this last True Dungeon at Gen Con, so if you're into that, go ahead and look into it, though I think it's done. Again, this is just what I heard. There were also tons of Kickstarters being released there. Vault Wars was one of them. I picked that up. There was some Red Dragon and stuff there. It seems to be more prevalent at Gen Con nowadays to go pick up your Kickstarters. And the last thing was the prototypes. Tons of prototypes. More prototypes than I thought I would see. I don't know. I feel like Gen Con is a con to release games. And with the prototypes, they might come out Essen Spiel, but I'm not going to Essen Spiel, so it doesn't really, I don't know. I would rather see more games come out than more prototypes, but that's neither here nor there. Now, let's get to the booths. The big one there was Fantasy Flight. Huge, and always is. And I start with this one because they have a lot coming out. So let's start right now and let's try to get through this in a timely fashion. Everyone thought that Imperial Assault would kill Descent. Well, it has not. Descent has come out with is coming out with a big box expansion called Journeys in the Dark, and it looks really nice. I like the art of it. There's also another expansion coming out for Eldritch Horror called Under the Pyramids. Now, this is going to, of course, have an Egyptian twist to it. It has me intrigued. I definitely like that genre. The other thing coming out from Fantasy Flight is Battle Lore expansion, Terror of the Mist. I haven't played Battle Lore, but that looks really interesting. The one thing that I did pick up from Fantasy Flight is the Game of Thrones LCG. Now, I'm pretty intrigued by this. I like Netrunner, though it didn't grab me as much as I hoped it would. So this LCG, I really like the Game of Thrones. I'm hoping this one takes off. I went through the cards. I haven't really gotten into the mechanics yet. It looks promising. So that was pretty hot at the at the booth as well, though they had an abundance of copies, so it looks like everyone got one if they wanted one. Of course, they had other LCG expansions for Netrunner, Star Wars, and Conquest as well. The thing that I played a demo of that I'm extremely excited for is Mission Red Planet reprint. Now, the first print of Mission Red Planet was pretty nicely done, though this one looks really nice. I like the art, I like the components in the game, and I've always been interested in Mission Red Planet, so I am really excited that Fantasy Flight decided to reprint this, and I'm going to be picking up my copy as soon as I can. Runebound has a 3rd edition coming out, so that looked really nice. Runebound is a popular game. They also had Forbidden Stars there as well, the game they released at Origins. They also had a game called Samurai. Looked like really cool minis and tile lanes, so intriguing. I'm gonna have to wait to see more about that later. There was a Warhammer's Quest adventure card game that looked neat. So I'm not the biggest Warhammer fan, but you know, I try everything once, so looking forward to that. The other reprint that I am super excited about, I was in love with everything that Fantasy Flight pretty much announced at this con, is Fury of Dracula, the reprint. People have been up in arms about this game and asking when is reprint is coming out, when can we get our hands on Fury of Dracula. Well, people, you can start getting that in the next few months, probably in October, but you know how fickle board game releases are. But we have it coming. We have Fury of Dracula almost within our grasp, people. Super excited. The other expansion, which was a huge announcement, was for, of course, Star Wars Imperial Assault. Return to Hoth. The miniatures look phenomenal in this one. I haven't picked up the Boba Fett expansion yet, though it's only because I haven't played it as much as I want to, but I'm gonna pick up that one and Return to Hoth because it's just to have them. I mean, I can't wait to play them, but they are just nice to look at. So the other thing that Fantasy Flight released was X-Wing new ships. They're the really big ships. I didn't get into that. It was just, they had so much to look at. So that was Fantasy Flight. And the next booth that had a huge presence at Gen Con was Upper Deck. Again, they were on the lanyard with Bring Out Your Dead, though that came out at Origins. What they had at Gen Con was the new Firefly game, Shiny Dice, which I picked up a copy of, so look forward to a review soon. The dice are chunky, very nice. The art on the box is a little more to be desired. I don't think they really captured anybody's essence other than wash, so yeah. Box art aside, the game looks really good. I played it. It seemed to have a learning curve, but once you got into it, it was second nature again. So that was one of the things Upper Deck had. They also had the Versus system out. This is a revamped game that was a CCG back in the day, now is repurposed as an LCG, which my game group picked up a copy. I look forward to playing that. It looked like it was all Marvel, some villains, Avengers, X-Men, and something else, 4 factions. So the other thing that was huge and was one of the hotness of the con is the Legendary system. The Predator came out, and they had half their booth set up in the facade of Predator. Very jungle elements. It was really nice. That I didn't pick that up, though I like Legendary, and Aliens was really good. Hard, but really good. The things that Upper Deck announced, other than what I just said here, was Big Trouble in Little China. They picked up the license to that, so they're going to be making a game that's a really good movie, so I am intrigued by this. So that was Upper Deck. Game Salute was also there with Nothing Personal, the expansions, the one that Tom Vassell and Steve Avery actually did with the names of Power and Influence and the Associates. I didn't look into this too much, though it looked pretty neat. The Princess Bride card game was also prevalent there, which I love the Princess Bride, so I'm going to have to give this one a shot. Stronghold Games was there. I'm making a point to have them in this segment because I forgot them at Origins. They had 2 big titles associated with the Space Cadets game there. The Space Cadets survive the space attack that was designed by the Engelsteins, and that looks really good. I like Survive. I think I would play it again if it was Space Attacks. I didn't pick it up, though. I do look forward to playing this one. The other Space Cadets game they had was a miniature game, really kind of pricey, but it looks really good. It's called Away Missions, and it looks like the cadets are actually going onto a planet and trying to maneuver themselves through different scenarios. Looks really neat. Keep going with the Space Cadets. I like Space Cadets, and that's a IP that I think is pretty strong and will continue to get so. The other things that Stronghold Games had was the Dark Moon game. That was a prototype, I think, at Origins, and they released it here at Gen Con. I didn't look too much into it, but it looks interesting. The thing that I was most interested that Stronghold had was Code 777 reprint. This game was out of print, and when I went to go get it, I couldn't because it was crazy expensive. This is kind of a deduction game with numbers, and I was really excited to see it reprinted because now I can get my hands on it. They also had all their same old stuff that Stronghold has, Diamonds, the Picto game, and whatnot. So that is basically Stronghold game. And the other booth there was the Broken Token. Also inserts they had there. They don't actually publish games, but they make inserts for various games like Imperial Assault, Caverna, Pandemic, what have you. They're really nice wooden inserts. I always go over there when I go to a con because I pick up at least one or two. They also have little accessories like hearts for Love Letter and little energy bolts for King of Tokyo. So if you're at a con, go check out the Broken Token. You won't regret it. The other booth I seen there was Renegade Game. They had a World Fair game that was pretty prevalent there. They brought out lanterns at Origins, and they brought back Gravwell and all that. But this one, they were focusing on this World Fair game. Didn't look too much into it, but it looks really interesting. The box art was a big Ferris wheel, a good color palette, but it's something I'm going to have to keep my eye on. The thing that I was most excited to see was Snow Tales was reprinted. This seemed to be a con for reprinting really good older games, and Snow Tales is a racing game where you have a sleigh of dogs and you're trying to manipulate them to win the race, and looks beautiful. I like the direction they went with the art, so good job on that, Renegade Games. I'm going to pick up my copy ASAP. And the next big booth that we have was, of course, Asmodee, or Days of Wonder, Queen Games, Madagod, this big conglomerate that they've become. They had a lot of cool stuff there, mostly expansions that I was interested in, which are the Takinoko expansion for the Chibis. You have another girl panda meeple, and you have little babies that you can make in the game. So that was really neat. Me and the kiddo played that the other night. I think it's a strong expansion. Nothing game-changing, though. The Cash and Guns expansion was there as well. I wasn't able to pick that up, but I will here soon. This allows you to take two guns and point them at two different people. Or maybe two at the same person. Who knows? That's one of the aspects of the game. I don't know much beyond that, though. Cash and Guns. I mean, yay. The Abyss, or Abyss, expansion was there as well. They also had the Ultimate Warriors game, the competitor to King of Tokyo, I guess. It's not really the same game. Those big monsters, and it has a 3D board. I picked up one of those, so look for a review here soon. They also had a big game of Mysterium there. Mysterium had a kind of a different section to the booth. It was very dark and whimsical. I didn't get to go in there. They were demoing the game. They had a limited supply of copies and they sold out. That was one of the hotness of the con, was Mysterium. The other things that Asmodee had was the Ticket to Ride expansion. This makes the game a little bit gamier, like more strategy is required to set up routes. So I think this will be a good expansion. The other thing that they had was the Cold Express expansion there as well, where you're kind of going on to different coaches, and it's Cold Express, and it won the Spiel, so of course they're going to try to release the expansion here at Gen Con. The last thing that they had there was, that I covered at least, was the Kemet expansion. Kemet's really cool. Cyclades is also really nice. I can't wait to see the miniatures on this one. The other booth that I have is Portal Games. Now, Mr. Ignacy was there. I got to take a picture with him. Though it was a small booth, they were really pushing Rattle Battle a lot. I mean, they had Legacy there. I actually picked up a copy of Legacy, but they seemed to really be focused on Rattle Battle, and the booth was kind of small, but dedicated all to that game. Right next to them, though, was the hotness upon hotness. I did not get this game, and I really wanted it. CCG was there with the new Vlado Svatu, I think that's how you say his name, design code game. Now, code name. Now, this game was incredibly hot. They had pre-orders, and then they had a stockpile of pre-orders that didn't get picked up, so they had an hour line just for those copies. On Sunday, there was always people trying to grab this game. I actually played a demo, loved it, wanted a copy, couldn't get it, though. There were other things at CCG there as well, you know, the dungeon pets and whatnot, but this was their focal point, and it's a really nice, very simplistic style game that just gives you something that most party games and or deduction games don't give you. I love this game, and I cannot wait to pick up a copy. Hopefully it's in stores soon. Code Names. It was the hotness. The other booth that I just love this guy, Ryan Lockett from Red Raven Games. He was at his booth every day. He was talking to people. I mean, a lot of designers were out there on the floor most of the time, but every time I walked past his booth at Red Raven Games, he was there promoting his games with his team. I just adore Ryan. He is an anomaly. I have so much respect for him. Now let's stop drooling over Ryan and get to what he had at his booth. They were testing out demoing the Above and Below Kickstarter that's going to be coming out here soon. The storytelling game that has some worker placement aspects to it too. It looks really nice. His art is always just phenomenal. They had expansions for the 8-Minute Empires as well. The game that came out at Gen Con that I got to play a full version of, because we got it in our gamer group, was Architect Inc. And this is a very small worker placement game. The way that it scores, though, you can have different strategies. You're trying to get fossils and statues and pottery and trade them into the museum or sell them for profit. You really can master this game in different ways because of the different ways to score. So I was impressed with this game. It is great for the small box game that it is. I'm going to be getting my own copy. I am looking forward to Above and Below quite a bit though. So yeah, that was Red Raven Games. Mayfair was also there. Didn't see anything announced by them, but they had the Catan and just a huge booth. They always have a huge booth, and their carpet is very spongy. I like walking on it. It's the best carpet of the con. Mayfair, you have the best walking carpet of the con. Congratulations. Mayday was also there. Don't confuse that with Mayfair. Mayday Games was there with their Viceroy, which I think came out at Origins, or it came out at Gen Con. It demoed at Origins. It looked great. They were selling upgraded versions of it. They had the gems. Viceroy is a game that I've been interested in for a while. It is now in my game group. I finally get to play it. Mayday had that there. That was basically their focal point. They also had all the goodie stuff, the goodie games. They always have Coconuts, Coconut Duo. I bought that for my friend for his birthday. They also had the Chopstick Dexterity Challenge 3000, which I finally picked up. Really excited about that. They also had Meteor there, which came out at Origins, but was also pretty hot at their booth. I also picked up Meteor. So Chopsticks and Meteor will have a review coming up very shortly. So that was Mayday Games. Now, The next booth that I'm going to be talking about is kind of a sleeper. I didn't know anything about them, though this game that they had caught my eye. Tactic Games. Now, Tactic Games is within this umbrella corporation called Arctic Union, which I'm going to give more details about later on in the video and other videos, that basically has a whole bunch of different publishers within it, and Tactic Games is one of them. And the game that they had was Realm of Heroes. Now this is, I think, the sleeper of the con. It's very colorful. It's a racing game. The board actually rotates, and you can basically screw over your opponent by rotating the board and stopping them from crossing the bridge, or rotate a bridge to you. The miniatures are really nice. The colors are immaculate. Everything that they did with this game visually so far is really pleasing. So I can't wait to actually read over the rules and play the game. Realm of Heroes by Tactic Games. They also had something called Terra Evolve, though I didn't really look into that. That Heroes game just really caught my eye. So that was Tactic Games. Calliope Games was also there. They had all the same stuff like Roll For It, Suro. I seen something in the case that said Star Wars on it, and I was like, what? Star Wars Asteroid Escape. Now, I don't know what that is. It was kind of covered up by other games in the case. I'm gonna keep my eye on it, but Calliope has a Star Wars title. Okay. Continuum Games, a kid developer game, though they have other stuff too, like Eruption, Corkle, and they also have Super Monster City Smash, which I don't recommend that game. It shorts out. They need to make those components a little better, especially if they're going to get the bulk of the game is you controlling the monsters. They just short out. I don't want to get into it, but they had a presence there. I like a lot of their games, just not the Super Monster game. And the next big booth that we have that I'm going to go over is Yellow. I love Yellow and got to pick up a few games there. So what they had announced was the King of New York expansion with power-ups. Very neat. Give me more King. I want it, please. They also had the Heroes of Normandy expansion as well. They had a few games on display for demo, but they weren't selling them, which is the one game is Who's Got My Cookie? A kid game, looks like a kind of a deduction game. I don't know. It's cute. They also had one that I was very intrigued by, and I've been interested in it for a while, and that is the Big Book of Madness. The board is actually a book. You have adventurers that have to go into the book to right their wrongs because they open this book, and if they don't do it in a certain amount of turns or pages, the book shuts, and then they're gone for good. Very cool premise. Yellow's art on it. I mean, how can you go wrong with that? Hopefully they don't. The other games they had on display there, but they weren't selling, was the Red Riding Hood prototype. Or it looked pretty fleshed out. Now this is a part of the storybook games that Yellow is producing, and the last one was the Ant and the Grasshopper. So this is the 5th one, and it looks really good. I like the art on it. I don't know the premise of it though. What I actually picked up at Yellow was Medieval Academy. They were demoing it at Origins, and they brought it to Gen Con to sell. There was an abundance of them. Good job on having stock, Yellow, because a lot of people did not. They actually gave you fabric bags at Yellow too. At Origins they gave plastic bags, and I bet they got some recourse from that. So that was. Oh, they also announced a game called Happy Pigs. I heard Tom Bassel liked it. That's really all the exposure I have to it, though. I mean, they can't do too bad with pig art. You've seen it before. So that was Yellow. R&R Games was there with the biggest game they had there was Stockpile. Looked like a lot of people were grabbing Stockpile, but they also had all their classics like Hearts of Attraction, Home Stretch, the horse racing game, and First and Goal. So. The next booth I want to be talking about is Floodgate Games. This is where I went to go pick up my copy of Vault Wars. So they were releasing the Kickstarters there. They're also selling them too. Had a lot of them. I wish more booths had more games like these two booths that I just Yellow and Floodgate did. But whatever, maybe they weren't that hot. They also were selling Epic Resorts and Legacy Gears of Time. Now, Legacy Gears of Time is supposedly a time game. Floodgate has a really good artist, kind of reminiscent of Yellow, but has its own little twang to it. Vibrant colors in board games are my Achilles heel, so if you do that, I'm probably going to be interested in your game. Stoneblade Game was there with their Ascension. No expansions this time, though. They had bad beats for $10, $15 there. This is very kiddie art deduction game that happens probably over 15 minutes. You're trying to get rid of all your beats on your plate without actually eating them. So you're feeding them to the dog. You're passing them to other players. It looked cute. I'm definitely going to give it a try, but I didn't pick it up. Cryptozoic was there. Cryptozoic had 60 copies of Spyfall on Saturday. They also had 60 copies of Spyfall on Friday. They had none on Sunday. I wasn't there on Thursday or Wednesday to pick them up. I didn't get my copy of Spyfall. I'm about to pull my hair out. This was just my biggest disappointment. Now, I'm gonna be able to pick up Spyfall eventually, but I've been clamoring for this game. If there was any game of the con that I really wanted, a small game at least, it was Spyfall. I was there in the beginning of the morning, and Cryptozoic is right next to the door. I got in line. They had 60 copies. I was like maybe the 100th person. Yeah, so that was my biggest disappointment of the con, though it wasn't that big. I'll get it eventually. But Cryptozoic was there. They had more adventure time with the lemon guy was one of the heroes that they displayed. I can't remember the other one. They also had hex mats, which were hot. I don't know what those were, but I was in line and they were saying, "We only have so many hex mats. We only have so many Spyfall. Why don't you get more of them, please?" They had a few prototypes there. The Portal game that I've been keeping an eye on. I love Portal. It cakes to lie. But it looked kind of blah. I hope this is just a prototype, big time. It's a puzzle game, puzzle board game, and it's kind of broken up in hexes, and they have little meeples that look like the silhouette on the men's bathroom sign. With different color bases. I don't know. I want this to be good. I don't think it's going to be good. So that was Portal from Cryptozoics. They were prototyping that and demoing that. They also had a prototype of Attack of the Titans because they have that license. That looked kind of interesting. They had a big cardboard Titan. They were attaching things to its body, I guess points where you can hit. I like Attack of the Titans, and this is something I'm going to keep my eye on. But that is basically what Cryptozoic had to offer, along with the rest of their other stuff. Though, I don't know. AEG was also there with their new love letter, Adventure Time love letter. I know, you're saying, enough with the love letter. Though this one seems neat. If there was an IP that you were going to do a princess-based game on, definitely do it on the IP of Adventure Time. Because I'm sure Princess Bubblegum is 8. I'm going to pick this one up. They were doing a pretty good deal. If you bought one love letter, or 2 love letters, you got 1 love letter for free. But again, so much love letter. They also had Junta there, a reprint game that in the past has gotten a lot of good press. They also had one thing that I picked up, which was the Munchkin Smash Up. Now, this is pretty cool. This is not just taking 2 different races and smashing them together. You have classes and you have races. So you have, it's a big box one, so it has 4 of each. So 4 classes, 4 races. So you can be a dwarf paladin or a dwarf mage. Dwarfs don't use magic, but whatever. Or you can be a dwarf warrior. I know, I'm doing dwarfs. I love dwarfs. Or you can be a human wizard. Who knows? I don't know the classes. I've just busted out to look at them, though there are monsters in there too. So, looks really cool. I don't traditionally like Munchkin. It's a decent game, though I don't go out to play it. This one does intrigue me, IP or not. So, that was AEG. Gale Force 9 was also there. with their Homeland games, the new Firefly expansion, what was it, Callista, I think is how you say it, I can't remember. They also had the WWE card game they had there as well. Carol Force 9 likes to take licensed property and make decent games out of them. I like Firefly, and what else? I like WWE. I didn't play it, but it looked interesting. So that was Gale Force 9. They were there with a decent presence. Arcade Wonders was there as well with all their Mage Wars goodness, and Crit was also there representing. They had a few prototypes for their Essentials line, Dice Towers Essentials, and Royals was one of them, which is looking really good. I'm excited to try it out. It didn't look like it was just demoing there. So that was Arcade Wonders. They also had all their good stuff like Sheriff of Nottingham. They also had the other Dice Towers Essentials there. I can't remember. It was like a chess variant. I don't know why I didn't write it down, but it's slipping my mind. So that was Arcade Wonders. And the next booth that I'm going to go over is Steve Jackson Games. Now, they had a whole bunch of Munchkin goodness, speaking of Munchkin. I didn't really look into it again, I'm not the biggest fan. Though they did have one title that I was interested in, and that is the Mars Attacks 10-minute takedown. I hear it only takes 10 minutes. I tried to get a demo done, I tried to buy it, I went in too late. They did have a lot of copies, so I'm not going to get onto them. I slacked on that. It's a dexterity game where you have targets in the middle that have 3 rings, and you're shooting your dice at it, and if it lands on a ring, you take one ring off, and then the target gets smaller. That looks really interesting to me. I love dexterity games. I like the IP they're using. The last Mars Attacks game that they had was, I don't know. I didn't like it too much. It was okay. Though this one, I think I'm going to like. So I'm going to pick this one up here soon. That was Steve Jackson Games. The other booth that was there, and Eric Lang was here, was Cool Mini or Not, and this is hotness. Blood Rage. There was the miniature game that came out for Cool Mini or Not. They also had their other games there as well, Arcadia quests and expansions and whatnot. But Blood Rage was, I mean, they had a huge banner for it, and Eric was there signing his little cool signature. And that was one of the hotness of the con as well. So that was Cool Mini or Not, very brief, but what you gonna do? Peterson Games was pretty prevalent there. They had a few booths actually. They had the Cthulhu Wars, the overproduced Cthulhu Wars. Now the box is huge. I hear the game is a decent game. It's not just huge miniatures with a blah game. It's huge miniatures with a decent, if not good game. It's just the price tag is really high. I want this game. Maybe if the miniatures were just a little bit smaller, I could afford it. Though, it is what it is. I mean, I would love to play this game and actually own it. So that was Peterson Games. IDW Games was there as well. They had games for their IPs of Chew, the comic book. Looked really interesting. Open Sesame, they had a whole bunch of these little square games, and Open Sesame was one of them. I picked it up, so you'll get a review of that soon. Trap was also one of the games they had in a square box. They also redid Dragon's Gold, a better copy of Dragon's Gold, not in a tin. So I would, if you're going to pick up Dragon's Gold, pick it up from IDW. They upgraded the components. The discs are no longer discs, they're jewels. Very smart. So that's one of the other things they had at IDW. They also had a satire role-playing game that they were kind of touching on. I didn't get to hear too much about it. I got the promos for it. Though it's a card game that's going to be kind of a playoff, role-playing games and satire. So they seem to really want to push that a little bit. So that is IDW Games. Cosmos was also there with Lost Cities, nothing new. Dimensions, that little ball stacking game, that's it's Cosmos. Busy A Games was also there. They were showcasing their One Night Werewolf experience and whatnot. They actually have a Kickstarter for One Night Vampire, which is a variant, I think, of One Night Werewolf and maybe an expansion. And that's on Kickstarter right now as I'm filming this video. Though the thing that Busy A had that I was most interested in was to favor the Pharaoh. Now this is a reprint to a game called To Court the King. Now it's a dice manipulation game of luck where you're rolling a ton of dice. I've always wanted To Court the King, though it's been kind of hard to get. And I haven't played it, though I've watched numerous videos and I know that I would like this game. So I'm excited that they're reprinting this. I don't know why they changed the theme, though Egyptian theme is cool by me. They also had Terra game. It has a planet Earth on the front of it. I didn't get into it. I was too obsessed with To Favor the Pharaoh. So that was Vizier Games. Dice Hate Me was also there with all their goodness. The bottom of the ninth. They weren't actually selling it, though. I talked to Chris and he was like, I wish we could get that. We could have got that at Gen Con because we would have sold a ton. It looks really good. I like baseball. I'm a baseball fan, and to bring it into board game and have a good game. They had all their rabbit games and whatnot. The one thing that Chris wanted me to do is really focus on the New Bedford game. Now, this might have a theme that most people might not relate to, though I don't know why it's such a big deal. New Bedford is a game where you're out whaling, and it's basically a worker placement game. I hear the mechanisms are very smooth, though they did pick a very interesting theme. It doesn't bother me that much, even though I've watched the Humpback movie at my local museum, and they were really getting into the fact how whalers were taking out whales and almost made them extinct. Though the part of that movie that I took back, which is associated with the New Bedford game when it comes to the theme, is we need to educate ourselves and not to be doomed to repeat, right? So in the movie, the Hunchback whale movie I was watching, there were people educating their community on how the whalers used to kill the whales, just to give them an insight, like, this is what happened, this is why it's bad, and we don't do this anymore, though we have to educate ourselves. So I'm basically attaching that to New Bedford. Of course, you're going to romanticize and glorify the whaling and try to be the best whaler, though it's just a game, and it's kind of almost educational too. You wouldn't go out there and whale whalers, and you're not going to take their oil for your lanterns. We're beyond that. So I don't know what the huge big deal about this game is. I don't think the theme should kill this game that much. So go ahead and look into New Bedford and tell me what you think. That was Dice Hate Me Games. Nesca Games was there with a few decent games that I got to see. It was the Bad Medicine, which is kind of a storytelling voting game. It's kooky. It'd probably be worth a good play or two, but I don't know. And they also had Battle Merchants there, which is a game that I was interested in. You're making weapons for the adventurers. They go in, they fight, and if they beat people with your weapons, you get points. This kind of reminds me of one of the blue box games. I think it's called Fantasy Merchant, the game that I wanted, but I couldn't get a hold of. So I'm actually going to pick up Battle Merchants from Nesca Games. The next booth that I only have one game for this, and it's Greenbrier Games. Now this booth had a game called Folklore, and it was on Kickstarter a ways back. It funded, but then they pulled out because they didn't think that they could give an experience that they thought was worthy. And I think it was a good decision. I went over with the designer the whole schematics of the game and what's progressed. It's a game where it has all the folklores of our time. Werewolves, vampires, you name it, it's probably in there, ghosts. And you're basically intertwining a story to it too, and you're moving and traveling along the roads and doing different expeditions and missions and fighting these different people, well, folklores, to, of course, adventure. But you also go into town and get your stuff and build up and have the dungeon crawl and the adventure. So you have like the adventure that you're going through, and then you're actually going to be going to the dungeon. So you're beefing up your character. And my friend in my game group, I quote him, and he said, "I've never seen a game that had adventure and dungeon crawl. It's normally one or the other, and I would have to agree. This one seems really interesting. The story is really nice. The miniatures are beautiful. And you actually, if you die in this game, you become a ghost, and sometimes that's beneficial. So I thought that was really neat too. But that's Folklore by Greenbrier Games. It's going to be coming back on Kickstarter. I think it's September of 2015. So go ahead and check that out. The next big boost that I'm going to announce is basically a conglomerate because they merged. They announced that they merged at Gen Con, and that is Plaid Hat and Z-Man Games. They are now one corporation. Now, don't worry too much. Of course, Z-Man's going to do a lot of the production, and they're not going to interfere with what gold Plaid Hat is actually producing, though merging together just gives you more options, and I always think it's a good thing, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. At the Plaid Hat booth, Ashes was being sold. Another one of the hotness. It's a beautiful game. It's up to 4 players, but it's traditionally played as a 2-player game. It's a card-based game. If you haven't heard anything about this game, I would recommend you go out and take a look at it because Ashes looks great. And they had all the other stuff. They also had a box for the Skyward Tales, the new, I think it's what's called Mice and Mystics expansion. And oh my lord, that looks phenomenal. I know I use that word a lot, but that is it. The box art just looks very nice. There's its color scheme is perfect. There's a rat riding a bird. I mean, what more can you ask for? So that was Plaid Hat, along with all the other stuff they had. Z-Man Games had a whole bunch of stuff as well. A lot of their back stock. No new Pandemic this time, though they did have a bunch of copies for everything. Though the other branch of the Z-Man Games, the Pretzel Games, had Flick 'em Up and on giant display, and they were selling the deluxe wood edition of it, and I got a copy. Not many, and I'm not going to get on to them about this one because they only had like 70 copies. This game, I mean, it's huge. It's like a deluxe copy of it. Now, it's not the giant game that you've seen at the cons, though it's really nice. And I fortunately got one of those, so look for a review on that very, very soon. They also were displaying the expansion to Flick 'em Up as well. It had ponies, and you're going to be flicking things up ramps and knocking people off their ponies. That's my type of game. That's me all the way. So. Tasty Minstrels Games also announced a reprint that I'm very, 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 very excited about, and that is Coliseum. Now, they're saying that they're going to be upping the production of the Days of Wonder copy that came out way back when, which is okay. I mean, I think that the Days of Wonder copy was nice, though there are some tiles that could be upgraded into different things that I think Tasty Minstrel could do. But I will get Coliseum the first day it hits the shelf. So that is what they were doing. I didn't get to see much else, but that's what they announced. Level 99 was there as well with BattleCon and Pixel Tactics. It didn't look like they had too much going on there. Though the next booth here, Soda Pop Miniatures or Ninja Division, had Relic Knights. Now they do the what is it? Super Dungeon Explorer, which is really nice, and I am super excited about this Relic Knights. You can see the video here. It looks great. Now I'm sure this is just an enhanced version, though it can't be much more enhanced because their miniature is really nice. So look for Relic Knights in the future. The other booth there was Smirk and Dagger. They were broadcasting their Nevermore game. Had a huge raven on it. I haven't played this one, though it's been something that I've kept my eye on. They also had a whole bunch of their other stuff there as well. The other booth that was there was Slugfest. Slugfest designs Red Dragon Inn and only Red Dragon Inn. And they had a prototype, just a box, for the Red Dragon Inn 5 at the booth. I was salivating for this box. I'm a backer. As a disclaimer, I'm really excited about Red Dragon Inn 5. They had a whole bunch. They had 4 different ally expansions. They had upgrades to your player board, and they had the coins there. They only do one game, but the one game they do it really, really well. So I'm looking forward to Red Dragon Inn 5. They had I picked up Wrench. Wrench was the only ally I picked up there. The next booth that I have is one of my favorite publishers ever, and that is Haba. Haba had all their usual stuff there, as you can see. And the 4 new games that they had there was the Ghostbusters, the Pharaoh Gula Gula, the Gold Am Arino, and the Tirat Tir. Now, Tirat Tir is basically animal upon animal on a bridge, so it's like very unsteady, and you're trying to stack the animals on top of it. Looks really cool, adds in a lot of different animals as well. The Gold Am game is a really cool game that I'm interested in, where you're going down a river on a log, and I'm thinking that you're grabbing gold along the way. It looks really cool. The Pharaoh Gula Gula is a reprint, and it's a different theme, but it's basically a board game where I think you're moving, and there's a little stick that's in this pit of little tiny wooden balls, and you have to remove balls without knocking the stick down. So that looks really interesting as well. And Ghost Blasters is a tiny game, but also new. I would look into that stuff. Speaking of stuff, cool stuff was there, and they always have a nice ding and dent section, and just discounted games all through and through. They had 2 booths. If you want to go to Gen Con to get a decently priced game, go to the cool stuff booth. So, Flying Frog was also there with all their different stuff that they had last night on Earth, and what they were really broadcasting was the Shadow of Brimstone and the new Caverns expansion that they had. My game group also picked this up. We're going to be playing a session here soon, so I'll give more of what I think about Shadows later, though it looks really nice. A Western kind of dark, gritty zombie feel. It's really neat. Dungeon crawl as well. The other surprise thing that I seen there was Jasco Games. They're the one that have Mega Man's license, and they had at the con Mega Man the card game, which I'm not too interested in. Though they did have the board game prototype there and demoing. It looks really nice. Now the miniatures are painted. Who knows if that's going to be the case when the game actually comes out? Though I don't know. There were multiple Mega Men on the board, so I'm thinking they changed the rules and how the game actually plays since last I looked into it. I've always been really interested in this because I love the Blue Bomber. So we'll see how this plays out, and hopefully, they make a good board game, because I really want to play Mega Man in board game form. So that is one of the things they had. The last 2 things they had at Jasco Games was the announcement of Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat 10 card game. I don't know if you're going to be able to intermingle those or just fight them solo, but it seems like a tactical card game where you're, taking the IP and fighting with the fighters. So, Japanime Games was also there with Crossmaster. They also had a expansion for Crossmaster. I don't know if it was announced or if it was there. It had a pirate on it. Cool. They haven't really explored that yet, so we'll see how they take that and run with it. One of the other things that I want to mention, though I'm not really into miniatures games, Pulposaurus had a Conan miniature game. Now, this is not the board game that was on the Kickstarter a ways back. This is a miniatures game. Though the miniatures look phenomenal. You can see the statue. I don't know. I like Conan, or Conan, and I don't like miniatures, though this one intrigues me. So if you're into that, look into Conan, the miniatures game by Pulposaurus. Blind Ferret Entertainment also had this role-playing game, I guess you could call it. It's called Looking for Group. Now, they've had this line of comics called Looking for Group for about 13 years, and they're on like their 20th or maybe even further. Though they decided to recently put out an RPG for it. So it's a satire on all RPGs again, seems to be like the cool thing to do. and they wanted to put in a roleplay form and make a visceral game. So that's what they did. They also had a actual game there called Orphans and Ashes. I think you're burning up orphans. Talk about that, like offensive themes. So that was Blind Ferret Games. There was also a Camel Up expansion as well. I didn't get to find it. I looked everywhere. I don't know. It's so busy. Again, I'm a one-man team. I can only do so much. But Camel Cup expansion was there, and Camel Up is actually a good game. So, all right. So that is basically all the booths, and that's all the coverage that I can really give you. Rio Grande actually had a huge room up top there, so if you were into that, you could go upstairs and just be in awe of all the people playing Rio Grande games. And that's basically all I wanted to talk about with the booths, but there is a little more that I want to get into. I actually got an exclusive by happenstance. It just kind of happened. So I was at the Tactic booth, and I was talking to the designer of Heroes, the Realm of Heroes, and there was this guy standing next to us just listening in. I go to walk out, and he asked the designer apparently who I was and said, well, that's a reviewer. So he ran out and tapped me on my shoulder, Mr. Usula. So I think that's how you say it. Uni is his first name, and he is the I think the main designer of the company called Play More Games, and he is also under the umbrella of Arctic Union along with Tactic Games and a few other people, but Play More Games is his company. Now he wanted to show off a game called Race to the North Pole. Now Race to the North Pole is interesting. I like racing games, but then the visual appeal just popped. The art on the box is one of the best art that I've seen. It's kind of campy, but it extends over the whole box. The attention to detail and just the art, I appreciate very, very much. So Mr. Uni came up to me and tapped me on my shoulder and asked me if I wanted to play this game and to broadcast it. And I was like, absolutely, please. It looks really good. So I'm going to be making a video of this game separately, but I just wanted to mention it on part 2 of the Gen Con, part 1 of the Gen Con coverage, just to, let you know what's going on. I played this game. It's a game where you're racing to the middle with your 4 people, you're turning the board, you're playing cards, the weather is blizzarding all over. It's a lot of stuff going on, but it's very simple. You get the hang of it pretty well, though it's a hard game to master. You really have to keep your eye out. So you can learn how to play really easy. It's going to take some time to master. So I'll get in more on that game in the later video. Please go check that out because this game is a good one, and I hope that it takes off as well as I think that it will. The last thing that I wanted to mention is the Dice Tower. Dice Tower, I was invited to a lunch. I backed them on Kickstarter, so they had to invite me. That's probably the only way that they would. Though, it was a bunch of fun. I get to talk to the guys at the cons briefly, and you can tell that their eyes are kind of wandering to the next person because there are tons of people they want to talk to, but not here. Me and 3 other people were able to sit down with Eric Summer, Sam Healy, Z Garcia, and Mr. Tom Vassell himself, and just talk. And it was one of the best experiences that I've ever had. It was kind of a blur, but the guys are just like they are in the videos, and they're more accommodating. Sam is one of the most polite people I've ever met. So, I mean, I was in awe in that experience. So I don't know if you guys are watching this, but thank you so much, Dice Tower, for that experience. They had a great booth there as well. Please go check them out if you're at a con, because I mean, the Game Vine, I say it all the time, would not be here if it wasn't for the Dice Tower. So that was that, and so that was my experience of Gen Con 2015. Again, I try to cover as much as I possibly can. Hopefully this helped you out with some of the things that you were wondering about the con, but this was my favorite. Hands down, I'm going to say it right now, my favorite. Might have been the lunch, might have been the games that came out, might have been me being more experienced and executing the con better. I don't know. But the people, the games, the scenery, the cosplay, it all meshed together so well this year. And I recommend you go out to the Gen Con 2016 if you can muster it up and you don't mind crowds, because there will be a bunch of crowds. So that was Gen Con 2015 coverage part 1. Stick around and see part 2 coming up with my 2 featured guests. I also will be doing a different video for Kingdom Death and Race to the North Pole, so check those out as well. Please like and subscribe to the video here. And until the next time that I see you, have a great rest of your day and a great time with all that you played. You heard it here on the Game Vine. My name is Dave, and I'm out.